Greg Schmidt. I was actually turning the wrong knob.
Oh, so it's just like your nitrous tuning days. Just turning knobs and hoping for the best.
Oh, yeah.
I like Greg.
We're getting into this, eh? I'm editing this video, Greg. Just remember.
That's fine. Well, see, like I can say that because like the only time that Brian ever nipped a piston was when I was helping him. So I can
go try things. I wouldn't.
Really, that SP2 just didn't want that much more timing.
No, but we did learn that first gear it wanted more.
Oh yeah, it liked it when there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
so
we got the only thing is, Greg, you're getting a little extra light maybe from that door that's open beside you.
There's
Do you
no
want to close that door beside you there? Thanks.
You guys suck. Well, you guys bring me in when you want. I know you guys usually do some chatting beforehand. So.
Oh, you're already in.
You're in, Greg.
We're in. Oh, yeah, hey,
we're in.
So if you want to start off, who you are, what kind of car you got, all that jazz.
So my name is Greg Schmidt. I'm from Brainerd, Minnesota, for what that's worth. And I have a 2010 Camaro. That is a Hemi engine power plant. Was a big single turbo 118 millimeter with a blow-through carburetor. And we are currently the world record holder for blow-through carburetor on a drag radial, and we are now swapping over to twin turbos and EFI. So, and then this year we're going to be sticking to big tires exclusively. So
cool.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about your upcoming plans, as long as this is official. But can you talk about maybe chasing No Prep Kings around and what your plans are with that?
Yeah, so we are currently in some talks with a company or two to solidify some funding to try to run the entire No Prep Kings season. We're getting a little bit late in the year right now, so if it doesn't happen fairly soon, we'll only be running some select races, and then we're going to make a run at it for 2024. Last year, we ran a little bit of no prep stuff and big tire stuff before we had an accident on track, and did very well with the big tires. We went I think at the Brainerd No Prep Kings in the whatever they called it, the testing whatever the night before. We went a 107 60 foot with a turbo car and a blow through. So yeah, we were definitely getting it figured out. And we know that this year going to the twin 88s, we're going to have a little bit more power management to be able to play with. So kind of excited for that. And the EFI is going to be way better because I don't have to worry about all of that carbonator stuff.
Yeah, I went through the carb stuff too, and EFI was a little bit of a learning curve for sure. Now it's just like feels more basic, even though it's not as basic in a way.
Yeah.
It all depends. Like if you're a big carb guy forever, then it feels left field. But I like it now for sure.
I do EFI tuning at our shop here in Brainerd, so the EFI doesn't scare me too much. But we actually put a Holley EFI Dominator on the car 2 years ago, so we've been doing all of our tuning with the blow through carb, and we've had a Dominator ECU in the equation this whole time. The only thing that's going to be tough is just figuring out the fuel side. We've already figured out the rest of the EFI and the system there, and now we're just going to introduce that little bit extra.
Nice.
Okay, I didn't realize that actually, Greg, that you had the Dominator in the car running most of the systems and most of your data acquisition probably and control, but just
not most, everything
other
than the fuel. And we actually were running auxiliary fueling under the carburetor, and the reason we were doing that is so we could learn the carburetor and get out there quicker. So we were triggering it with EGTs, and I set up a double piggyback in the outputs so we could have individual EGTs turn on one of the auxiliary fuel or two of them, or the second one at different temperatures. And so then we could go back in the data and see when it was turning on, and then we could make adjustments in the carburetor when it wanted the fuel.
Okay, that's really interesting. Can you talk about that a bit more, Greg, the auxiliary fuel? Because that's not something I'm familiar with. Do you have an injector below the carburetor, or is it a mechanical injector? What are we talking about?
Yep. So think of it as a nitrous system on there. So we ran big 1/8-inch NPT nozzles where you would have your nitrous and your fuel, but I just ran two fuels on there with two solenoids. So we would then trigger an output from the Holley Dominator via the EGT temperatures. And when it would get too warm, it would turn on one of those kits, as I call it, the auxiliary fuel kit. It would turn one on, and then that would cool your temperatures down. And then if after more boost would come in or more power was being made and it came up again at a higher EGT temperature, we could turn the second one on and then let it flow that way. But yeah, it was just basically it looked like a nitrous system underneath it. People asked all the time, like, oh, you got nitrous on this? Like, no, those are fuel solenoids. And we would just do that, and that way we could actually tune the carburetor without burning stuff up.
That's really slick. I'm just curious now about this, how you had it configured, but how many I guess of these like fogger style nozzles did you have below the carb?
One per cylinder. So I could actually,
per hole. Got it.
I could adjust the jets per kit on there. So if the first one was adding too much in one cylinder or something like that, we could actually change the jet size, and then we could also adjust it on the second one as well.
Very slick. That's cool.
A sweet setup. So with the twin turbo, are you still going to do some sort of like ninth injector kind of deal down the pipe, not being intercooled kind of deal, or are you putting in an intercooler? Or?
No intercooler, no, nothing there. We have a 16 injector setup that's going on this. We're going to be running a set of Carter Motorsports Bosch 210s, and then should be here, I think, tomorrow, a set of AFIS 800s. So we'll have over 1,000 pounds an hour per cylinder.
Actually, that was a bad question anyways, because if you're doing the no prep kings thing, I think in the rules it says you can't have a injector in front of the throttle body anyways. It wasn't for small tires, so I was like, I'm good.
But this will be a methanol deal anyway, Greg, is that correct?
Yeah, actually, so it's Sunday today. So there's some like big football thing going on. I think Manchester United's playing tonight or something like that. So I went down early this morning, and I just mounted the 6.5 gallon fuel cell and a bunch of stuff like that this morning, and came down here to come talk with my favorite 3 Canadians.
Yeah.
Hey.
Let us know who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put their names below.
Okay, Greg, I actually wanted to stick on the engine subject for another moment or two, because I was curious a bit. Obviously, you have the Hemi in this car, which is pretty bad to the bone setup to begin with. Changing from the blow through and the big single to the twins, is it the same engine architecture that you're working with, or are you making any other changes to kind of suit the twin turbo setup better?
So the changes that I did make, it's we're using on our YouTube channel at Bad Influence Garage, we did a engine rebuild and everything like that about a month or two ago, and so you can see everything we did there. The only things we really changed on it were like head gaskets. We gave it a little bit more compression, and then obviously we changed the intake manifold design. Besides that, it's a billet Bryant crank, it's a billet Brad Anderson block, billet Ken Venny heads. I run billet Gibtech pistons and billet MGP rod. Got a Ken Venny magnesium intake manifold that's meant for a blower that we just did an EFI conversion on. And I just built a different top hat with Wilson 123 millimeter throttle body.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I've been seeing the videos on the intake conversion recently too, so that's pretty slick. People have to check that out on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'll link your channel down below or whatever, and everybody can go over, and hopefully you'll get a couple extra subs from the 2 people that sub.
Yeah, that video.
Yeah, I'll get my mom and dad to sub.
That last video,
I'll just tell them.
Where we did that EFI conversion did pretty well. First couple of days out there, so it was a lot of work. For those who haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. But we took, since it's a magnesium intake, you can weld magnesium, but it's very tough,
right?
Because magnesium, when it starts on fire, it has its own oxygen and fuel and everything, so like it just keeps burning. It's really hot. So I made my own design using 3/8 NPT plugs, and we actually drilled and tapped the intake, and then the 3/8 NPT plugs we machined into to be the bungs for the lower part of the injectors. So definitely go check it out. We got everything from rolling it over, getting everything figured out, zeroing it in, doing the machine work and everything. It's a pretty cool video.
It's right up your alley.
Oh yeah, I would have been out there with the DeWalt drill holes, but Greg's got the milling machine or whatever, so it's actually nicely spaced and everything. I did have a question actually about the fittings that you put in. I know you were limited to how you could put them in because the magnesium, you couldn't weld to it and everything. If you could have done something different, would you end up would you want to stand the injector up more so that it wasn't like, was that angle any issue, do you think?
So
or
the angle is actually exactly where I wanted it. But if you look at the like Proline racing, like the MH5, MH6 engines, those injectors are at the very similar angle.
okay.
And when I talked with Frankenstein, they said, well, we can't tell you much on that because this is proprietary to Proline. But what we can tell you is that they found some more torque in it, and the drivability things got much better. So I did some more research on it and figured some stuff out. And yeah, having them not quite 90 degrees, but just a little bit coming down on there, since we're moving so much fuel with these engines, and with the airspeed and the boost pressure, everything in there, it actually doesn't hurt it that much, and it actually helps it in some certain areas.
That's interesting. Greg, to clarify, because I'm trying to picture it now.
Good question, Brian.
Good question, Brian.
Good question, bro. Good question.
The injector's 90 degrees to the axis of the port. Okay, so this isn't relative to like the back of the valve or anything necessarily. This is relative to the port itself.
If your intake is, we'll get it there like that, instead of having the injector standing up like this, trying to go down with it, it's more at the 90-degree angle. The angle of that injector, like in street cars and drag and drive stuff, that helps your drivability a ton when you're driving down the road, things like that, because it's going with the airflow, and it's going to help it at low driving speeds, things like that. But when you are like very minimal throttle and wide open, you don't need that drivability, and now you're able to take and introduce the fuel further up in the intake track, so it has a little bit more time to atomize, like a blow through carburetor would, where you're putting it in up top and it's coming through. So now we can put it up there, and since it's going to be dumping so much fuel, I mean, we're talking at 50 pounds of boost, we're going to be close to maxing out 1,000 pounds an hour per cylinder.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a lot of fuel.
Cool. Yeah, it's good insight.
So for those that don't know, maybe some of my other background is I went to college for high performance engine machining and assembly. So I do a lot of engine building, machining, things like that. And then kind of traveled around the United States, lived out in Las Vegas for like 3 years, worked at a NHRA machine shop out there where we did a lot of stock and super stock eliminator stuff. And then came back in 2012 or 13 to Minnesota here to kind of help run the day-to-day and help grow the family business here. So during all of that, I kind of had free reign to just, hey, we want to go racing and I want to go racing. So dad's like, well, go have fun. So during the nitrous days, man, I burnt up a lot of pistons learning, but we learned a lot, and then decided to make change to turbo after a rollover accident in 2019. We had a Heim joint failure in the wishbone. So rolled a car over, slid on my roof for 500 feet. That was a brand new car, sixth pass on a brand new car. So then I said I didn't want anything to do with the third gen. I didn't want anything to do with that anymore. Changed everything over to the fifth gen, went turbo, went Hemi, and really haven't looked back.
That's awesome. The previous car you're talking about, Greg, is that the one on the wall behind you?
No, that was the first third gen. That was from down in Georgia. That was when I was learning how to pull out timing correctly while putting in a really big shot of nitrous, and that happened. So, yeah, you need to have the proper amount of timing and nitrous in there at the same time to keep the engine speed moving. If you pull too much out and not enough nitrous in there, it doesn't have enough cylinder pressure, and it just wants to like stop.
It makes wicked pictures though.
Yeah,
if there's somebody to snap a photo, it's awesome.
He came over 2 days later, and he's like, I mean, I didn't want to bring it up to you at the time because you looked like you were a little pissed in the car, but like, I got a really cool picture. And I'm like, that is a cool picture. You know, it to me. He's like, oh no, it's like $45. And I was like, oh. So, but no, I built a car. There were very few pictures of it because it was, only 6 passes on the car. But it was 20 to all steel roof and quarter, 82 Camaro. And that one was a black top and green bottom and stuff on there. And that was a pretty cool one. But I've always been a third gen fan since I was a little kid. And dad, when we were going to build that new car, he's kind of just said, okay, let's build what you want. And I got to kind of build my dream car, big all aluminum 632, the dynoed like 1220 or 1230, naturally aspirated. And we had a big single on it, and we were throwing right about an 800 pill on it. So yeah, it was pretty fun. And then, yeah, wrecked it in 6 passes, slid on my roof in front of my hometown crowd. So, so that kind of stunk. And like the hard part about that is like, so you like when you're sliding, and you guys all race, so like when you're in your car, you feel like you're safe, you've got like funny car cage around you, you got all your stuff there. But when you're upside down and you hear like the steel roof being ripped away, and like you watch the carburetors just being ground down, and like you see all the little pebbles from the asphalt in front of you, you don't feel safe anymore. You're like, fuck. But like everything's in slow motion, you know, like I was sliding for maybe 10 seconds for the whole wreck, but it felt like it was 25 minutes in there. Like when I saw the carburetors break off and disappear from the intake manifold, I was like, oh, that's going to cause a fire. I should probably pull this now. All right. You know, like didn't seem like anything, but BIR has an awesome safety safari. And like there's videos where as I was sliding, the truck was following me, waiting for me to stop.
It is crazy how everything like works in slow-mo like that. And it's hard to explain it because like I haven't crashed yet. Yeah, no, but I did that big wheelie at Brainerd the one time. So I left the line, it came way up, and then I was like, oh shit, I gotta like stab the throttle to try and get it back down. Nitrous was on a wide open throttle switch, so as soon as I let off to go back on, it just dropped out of the air because it was running the progressive again. It came down and it hit the ground, and then I was like, okay, I know my oil pan is higher than the frame rails, so that should be okay. And I feel like I jiggled the steering wheel and I was like, hey, I still have steering. So then I like got back in it and made a pass. If you watch the video later, it's just straight up in the air, comes down, I'm on the throttle.
Yeah.
Like, but in the car, I was like I went through my checklist. Like, I'm like, okay, no, everything's good. And then I took off. Like, I thought I was there for like 30 seconds. But in the video, it's it's just fluid. I get where you're coming from with that for sure.
Yeah, any of that stuff, like it's like time just slows down and you're just like, ooh, like, oh, okay, up in the air. Oh, like we did a big wheelie at Georgia last year. That's that picture there. And that one actually went up on one tire and then came down. Yeah, that one was pretty wicked. We had awesome air, and Brad Edwards was a good, you know, friend of mine, and he was helping me tune some stuff there. And he goes, man, if you want to run this 3, he's like, this is the time to do it. The air is perfect. So we put a ramp in that thing, and we had that thing separating. Like it was at full extension at like, I don't know, 0.9 or 1 second flat, and like we had all the boost in by like 1.1 or 1 flat on there and everything. Like it was rugged. And that thing, I let off and it just went, it like didn't even move forward. It just like rotated on the tire and then came up, and I was like, uh-oh, this ain't good. And like when you don't see the wall anymore and then you don't see the stands anymore, that's when you go, okay, shit, I got to get out of this. So like, boom, sparks came out, everything, bunch of again, more good photos, and brought it back, checked everything over, and there happened to be like an oil down or something. So went up to the starting line, talking to some of the guys, and Shannon Davis from Davis Technologies comes over and he goes, hey, check this out. And he had a video of it from like a side angle from the other side, and you could see that like the tire rotated and then the tire and then just started to come right up. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, he goes, I've got a device that can help you with this. So I was like,
little product placement for himself there.
Exactly.
Greg, coming from the radio, so obviously you guys have had some success and done some work on the radial tire, now back on big tires. You mentioned maybe exclusively for this season. What's that, you know, what's your experience been like on the small tire, then moving to the big tire? And like, why are you sticking to the big tire? Because Brian went the other way. Brian went to not on a radial, but he went to a little itty bitty. So,
but Greg has horsepower.
That's okay. Well, this is what I'm wondering, if that's the main factor we're talking about here.
When I'm talking about any of my small tire stuff for all the people out there, it's exclusively on the 315 Pro. We ran Radial versus the World on that for 2 years, and a lot of fun there. But unless you're at a track that has always amazing, really good prep, you know, like South Georgia, that type of video there, you're always chasing the track, or, you know, trying to power manage so much out of it. It kind of becomes a pain in the butt. So like we did run the radial at Brainerd for a year or two, and we did get it to go pretty quick. We went like a 426 at 174 at Brainerd, and that was you know, it was fun. I think we set the track record for the fastest radial pass there. So
nice.
That was pretty cool. It was funny because it was after we went to Georgia, I think the first time on radials, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's not Georgia, you know, because we went like a 17 down there, and they're like, it's not Georgia. Oh, you can't put the same to it. It's not Georgia. And I was like, I know it's not Georgia. Like, it's my home track. You don't got to tell me it's not Georgia. Like, thank you. So Dad was like, think you can get it down? And I was like, oh, this thing's gonna go down. And he's like, okay. So we went out there, and it was the Q1, went down with like 426, and everybody was like, crap. And then I blew the tires off 4 passes in a row after that. So like you're constantly kind of chasing that track and trying to at Brainerd on the radial, what we ended up doing is after that one, we would use the second gear leave on our turbo 400, and that was able to tame it down to get it through you know, the 60 foot, and that made it a lot better.
You're able to get down that way. How much do you feel like you gave up on the front half doing that?
That weekend, in Q1, like I said, we went a 426, and then we had to go to the second gear leave to, because the track wasn't there to, kind of get down. So we ended up going a best that weekend in the second gear leave. We won the race with a 433. So we did give up quite a bit down low. But then I just tried to pile the boost up on top. So we went like 433 at like 172, something like that, and we went the 26 at 174. Yeah, wow. So like
the fact that you're able to get it down with that adjustment and still, run within a tenth, that's pretty cool. I'm not familiar with this sort of thing because I run with a clutch. So second gear leave means that you burn parts. It's kind of foreign, but that's a pretty slick
so then. You run like a slipper clutch with like base and everything on there?
Correct. Yeah.
So that stuff is super, like it's super cool, because this last year after we had an accident in 2022, I got a call from a guy that we'd done a little bit of work with in Mountain Motor Pro Stock. And so Dad and I went and traveled to like 4 or 5 different races for Mountain Motor Pro Stock, where that's what they run, is that car had a Liberty in there. So pew, 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 like it was super cool. And then had they run 2 discs with a floater. And we got to learn a lot about the clutch there. I was kind of there to help out with the computer side of stuff. The gentleman, a little bit, I don't want to say older, but a little bit older, and wasn't 100%, like, he didn't really get, like, once the data got on the computer, he knew how to look at the data, but like setting up in the power grid how to do the stuff, he was kind of like, I want it to do this, make it do that. And I'm okay, I can make that happen. So helped him with that, and Dad helped with the chassis and 4-link stuff and things like that. And then if I wasn't doing anything on the computer, since I have an engine background, I was like checking valves, setting lash, getting the engine ready to do warm-ups and stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that clutch stuff like that, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, super interesting. Those are a cool series of videos too that you did when you were down running with these guys. So that was always interesting to see insight, because it is a pretty different realm when you have a clutch car like that on the big tire with the big NA motor. It's pretty much completely different from what all of us do. It's pretty unique. So that was really neat to see.
Yeah, if you go back, people out there in YouTube land, we have one that when we were at the US Nationals, and we did a video talking about a Liberty versus a Lenco transmission and how they kind of work and the shifters and everything. And that's a really neat one to kind of see, because until I got into the Mountain Motor Pro Stock stuff, I was like, oh, cool, both transmissions start with an L, whatever, but no, it's really neat. And if you try to do a second gear leave and something like that, your clutch is shot.
Yep, not happening. I've often had different people who have different backgrounds, particularly on the automatic side, suggest that on different marginal tracks, or maybe they see me absolutely blow the tire off. They're like, oh, just leave in second gear, that, will calm it down or whatever. But not exactly how it works. A different approach with the clutch.
Take some bass out of it.
Different. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Take some bass out of it. Then if it's going to be real bad, then put a little bit more on your centrifugal to come in harder.
Yep, definitely different angles and tuning, and it's interesting for me. It's one way to make a car. Like, I found you can make it quite adaptable to different surfaces. Like, pretty much every time I've run this car this past season, it was on a different surface in different conditions. And same thing every weekend. It was, more often than I was pulling more bass out of it, for these marginal tracks, but, still trying to find a way to make it work. Brian, you're going to ask something about?
Well, I'm just thinking because Greg's been on almost every tire. If you want to dive into like some 4-link talk or anything like that?
You guys want to talk about? I've got background in a bunch of different stuff, and I'm pretty much an open book.
Like with your big tire swap, I know with radial you want to hammer that radial down into the track and probably run like a ton of anti-squat. What's your setup like for big tire kind of now?
Opposite of radial. There you go.
Totally opposite.
So yeah. on the radial, when you're trying to plant the tire and hold it down there and keep it squeezed, on the big tire, that's, you can get into some trouble maybe doing that.
So on a radial, if you think like the bottom bar in any 4-link is like what you want it to do to the chassis, all right? So like if you're level, on there on your bottom bar, it's not going to do much. It wants to push it forward. Okay. Now, if you have it so it's at an upward angle on there, it's going to want to push the chassis up and then separate. Okay. And now if you have a downward angle, it wants to push the chassis down, and that's going to come over the tire. All right. So if you think of your bottom bar as what it does to the chassis or what you want it to do, now you can kind of figure out a lot of your stuff of what you're, trying to accomplish. The other thing is on your top bar, on there, because we use our, well, we'll plot things out, just because Dad's used to that as well. But him and I both also look at the spread on there, because the spread can change, like for those that aren't sure what the spread is. So I have your bottom bar and your top bar, the mounting hole on each of those, how far apart they are, that's the spread on there. And then you have the spread on the front, on the chassis side as well. You can change that spread, and well, you can Tim McCamus or Jerry Bickle or Rick Jones, they have their software that'll plot everything out, and it'll tell you, oh, you're, this far out and this much and everything. But I can take those and move them around, and I can be 6 inches out, or 6 inches up and 56 inches out, but I can have them at 2 or 3 different places for it, because the spread will be different, and that's going to react completely different on them. That spread can make it so it'll hit harder, hit softer, things like that on there too. So on a radial, we want our bottom bar at an upward angle from the rear end to the chassis. All right, because what we want it to do is push the chassis up. When the chassis goes up, the tire goes down, and we start to separate. But then some of the stuff I don't talk about too much on there, but that top bar angle is very important. If you don't have that top bar angle set correctly on there, you can top your shock out. Some people try to use a limiter and things like that so they don't top the shock out. But if you take a look, and some of the people that are chassis guys will kind of understand, I don't want to give away everything on there. I had some other people help us with this as well, but if you watch that bar angle, I mean, once it gets to a certain spot, it's not going to want to continue to move. So if you can figure out where that area and get everything set up on there, you can get it so the suspension will stop separating before the shock tops out. And that's what we were doing. And we were having our shock, we'd be at 5.5 inches of extension in 1.2 seconds. That's a 105, 560 foot.
With the shock fully extended at about a second into the run, contrast that with if you're on a big tire or slick, I guess, but big tire in this case. What would that shock travel look like at a comparable point in the run?
I would say at 1.2 into the run on a big tire, we're compressed probably 3.5 inches.
So it's a huge swing in shock travel the other direction, as you said. Total opposite.
I have 2 different sets of shocks, one for radials, one for big tire. The springs are completely different. I mean, on a big tire, I run anywhere between a 95 and 115 pound spring. On the radials, I run a 65 pound spring. So think of this. All right, what's the spring's job on a radial car? Do you guys know?
Hold the car up off the bump stop.
I thought it was to keep the top plate from popping off.
Pretty much. I mean, it's just to hold it. You need enough spring there to hold the car up. Yeah, there's actually guys that have gone down the track with like 1 spring on there, because they'll put like 1 spring on and they just have the shocks controlling stuff. Yeah, if you don't believe me, look it up. Yeah, it's crazy. So it's just to hold the car up, okay? Because once it starts to extend, that spring has the stored energy, and you're running that shock as far down as you can, so you can use as much travel, to drive that tire down. On a big tire car, or a small tire car that's like a bias ply or something, you want your springs, because to control it coming down, and then you're controlling the extension rate to come back up. So yeah, it's a little bit different style on there of how you kind of run those, and it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. The one thing on the radials, when they're hooked up and like that, they drive like a dream. It's like a Cadillac.
That's how switching from big tires to small tires felt for me. They got rid of that whole like in a boat on the top end, kind of just floating or whatever. It feels so much tighter, and like the snapback is faster too. Like on a big tire, you could feel like the sidewalls kind of going as you're trying to keep it straight, and the small tire just like snaps back a lot easier.
On the big tires on there, so you're going to be looking at that bottom bar having from the rear end to the chassis at a slight downward angle for the average big tire thing out there, like that. Some guys will, and we've played with it a little bit, we'll actually run it at a slight uphill. I mean, we're talking like maybe a 1/4 of a degree.
Yep.
1/4 to half at most, because when you hit the tire, it's going to compress down and it's going to go past that, but then down track it can start to extend back out, and then try to drive that tire in, and then that kind of will help get rid of that looseness on the top, and squat over it and keep all the weight there. If it's trying to push it down, it can steer a little bit better, but it's a very fine line for running that, and you really need to watch your top bar and how you have that set up to do something like that. I haven't seen Trevor take a drink this entire time. Like,
motherfucker. You know what? It's been an off week. It has. I took a week off. That's just how that works. Yeah, you know, I wasn't feeling the greatest Wednesday, Thursday. Started coming back around yesterday.
So he's gonna get lost.
We're drinking vitamin waters right now. I know. You know what? I didn't even want to do this podcast without slugging a beer, but
who is this guy? What a loser.
Yeah, okay.
Loser.
I'm sorry, Greg. I'm sorry. You know what? We're gonna come on down to Brainerd and, you know, we'll clink a few there at nighttime if you're down.
So that's the one weird one. Like, so on a podcast, you're sitting here, I'll go ahead and I'll have drinks, everything like that. But like when I'm at the track, like I have a drink at night, then I'm the one that's in bed by like 11 o'clock or earlier, because I'm like, oh hey guys, how's it going? I have my one drink and I like high five everybody, and I'm like, oh okay, I'm gonna go use the bathroom, and then I like do the Irish leave, and I'm just like gone, go to bed.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just fire up the little pickle and I'll drive down with 2 beers. I'll give you one. We'll have your 1 beer, and then I'll just drive the car back.
If you can bring me a Yangling, I'm totally down for that.
A Yangling?
What's
it's the oldest brewery in the United States, and they're basically only in the southeast, and so like the closest state that we can get it is like Indiana.
Okay.
Look, you're going on a road trip, boy.
I mean, like, do you have like a second favorite?
No, you got to might as well take your motor home on that trip.
Yeah. What's that?
Draw you across the map, driving across the U.S.
I was gonna jump in with you guys. Come on, can't miss a trip.
Brian and I were talking about possibly, if we end up doing some No Prep King stuff this year. He was saying that he'd like to try to go run the first race in Ohio, and I know you can get it there. So
good tip.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
The only thing is, it's 3 back-to-back then.
What?
We got to go.
You got to stay on the road.
First No Prep Kings.
Hey, I'm in.
Come back.
Let's do it.
Terrace Bay. Got to go do our local race, and then the week after that's Brainerd No Prep Kings too.
Okay.
And the weekend before the Ohio No Prep Kings is the first Brainerd race for Streetcar Showdown as well. So yeah, so if we decide to run those 3, and we run the Brainerd one, we're looking at, it'd be 4 weeks in a row for us. Yeah, Brainerd, Ohio, Virginia, then back to Brainerd. They said, well, we'll see. I have to make all that happen. I have to have funding that has to finish coming through, because it's not cheap.
Oh no,
especially
that's big bucks for sure.
That's even if things go right. If you start throwing rods through blocks, I mean,
Yeah.
Who throws rods through blocks?
I don't know.
It's unheard of.
I mean, it was still kind of in the block, I guess.
I'll put mine up too. I've done it.
I did one at Cash at the Creek a couple of years ago where I didn't throw the rod through the block. I broke the crankshaft into 3 pieces and shot the crankshaft and a rod through the oil pan.
Oh,
see, I did that at Cash at the Creek too when I had my NA SB2. I broke the crank in half, but everything stayed contained.
Yeah, that block is junk. If anybody wants that, I'll sell it to you for some artwork or something. They'll buy me a set of rods or something.
Brian will fix it. Put it in the service.
Aluminum? Bad boy aluminum?
Yeah, it's a cast Ken Black or Keith Black, sorry.
Big block Chevy then?
Hemi.
Oh, Hemi too.
Upgrade time.
We're putting a Hemi in the pickle, boys.
I sent it to Brad Anderson to be repaired, and they called me up and they're like, do you have a sentimental value to this block? And I was like, I mean, no, not really. Why? They said because the price to fix with the crack in between the sleeves and everything and all the stuff on here is going to be more than it is to sell you a used billet block. And I was like, looks like I'm going billet block. All right, cool. So they sent it back to me, and it has 1 sleeve out of it. There's a crack in between all the way down, and then there's a hole in the side.
Fuck all around here.
Around here, boy.
Yeah.
Greg, bring that sucker to the first race. I'm taking her home.
I'll give you a 12-pack of beer.
We'll get you a bunch of those loggers for it.
You get a lot of those loggers.
You got any like cylinder heads that are busted in half or anything?
No, I got the set of I have the set of heads that's on the car, and that's it right now.
I just want to touch on this 4-link stuff. So the reason, if you could touch on the reason why you have to slam a radial into the ground versus why you're trying to suck the tire up on a big tire car, the reasoning for your 4-link changes would be.
You're on a radial, you're trying to get a basketball to hook up on glue and asphalt. On a big tire, we'll run between 5.5 and 6.5 pounds of pressure in it on a big tire. On a radial, we're going 12.5 psi in there, and it's a radial. It's got the belts, everything in there, so it's a basketball. and we'll take a 315 and we stretch it on a 16-inch wide wheel. So like there's no sidewall to this thing. Okay. So the only way you're going to get that thing to hook up is slam that thing in the ground and drive it out, and then take and lift up and force as much weight down on it as you can like that.
Big tire, you're trying to get the tire to square off or get some wheel speed, right? That's why you're
So it's we concentrate on what's called tire shear. So when you launch, you'll see on a big tire, you want, like between 1.5 and 2.5 revolutions of that little bit of slip off of the line there. You don't want to dead hook it, and that's where
I've been fucking dead hooking this thing my whole life. That's what I'm always like. Yeah, see that sidewall freaking crush? I just put the rim screw to the pavement, scratched it.
That's a little too much there. You want that little bit of shear, and then it'll catch up and take off. And as it's doing that, you'll see that you'll have that wrinkle there.
Yep.
And it has that little bit, and then it's gonna grab and then take off that way. On a big tire, that crush that you have there, you only have so much crush in that tire where it's actually usable, because that's stored energy in that tire. All right. Because if you want it, I mean, if you could take and have that tire have that wrinkle and the proper crush all the way down track, I think it'd be fast as shit.
So yeah, I think this is where it comes down to me sucking at big tire, because I've almost been as fast on small tire in the 60 foot as I have been with the big tire. But I've always I fold my big tire off the line. It's just like, I'll post a picture. I got a couple good pictures of still shots, and it's just.
I'm just gonna say this, Brian. Who told you to put small tires on that? I don't know, 2019.
Justin Higgins, I think.
Yeah. He's the only person. Okay.
No, he wasn't. It was you, Greg. It was you.
I told you that car would be really fast and it would work good on smalls.
So the reason I'm asking about the separation versus squat, big tire versus radial, is because I've been on small tire now, and we've been doing a fair bit of no prep and local bracket tracks and stuff. And I'm actually running extension right now. But I know a lot of small tire guys will also run compression off the line, like squat off the line.
On a bias ply small tire, if you are running something where you have decent, I'm going to air quote decent or okay, like in the 60 foot area, but then it gets really crappy up top, having it extend on there is going to be really good, because it's going to drive it down, and then you've got that tire planted for when your track surface gets really shitty. So like at a no prep type of a deal, if you have it, so because if you have shock sensors on the pickle, so if you watch whenever you like, even on a drag radial versus world car, anything like that, when you let off the button on there, it's going to come down before it comes up. It's just natural. Like, look at a front wheel drive car on there. Like, that's why they're so tough to get going on there, because it wants to move back before it starts moving. So it's always going to have that little bit. Okay. And that's going to set the tire, and then you can have it extend out. Well, when it sets that tire, especially on a floppy, small tire on there, it's going to set it and then drive that tire down. And as long as you have a decent, 60 feet, 30 feet, type of a deal where you can at least get the tire to move, and then you can power manage on it. Yeah, it's going to drive a lot better.
So I sent a video from underneath the car to AFCO, and I was like, is this normal? So what my car does, off the line, it'll leave and it'll extend 4 inches. It'll extend by mid track. I don't know if it's the wing or if it's the shift that upsets the car, but by mid track, it's compressed again and it starts going the opposite way. So by the end of the track, my shocks are actually fully compressed. Have you ever seen something like that before?
That sounds like aerodynamic.
I'm thinking it's the wing.
Like the wicker bill on that thing.
How much of a wicker bill do you have on the end of your wing?
When it's doing that, it's got like a 1-inch wicker bill on it.
Next time you go testing, drop the wicker bill down or take it off and see what it does. I
don't write enough of my data down to probably do that. But
hey, Trevor, next time he goes out testing, make sure you write that down, okay?
Oh, for sure. At least we have the video.
You got any slush box questions for Greg with the automatic? Or?
Well, I was curious earlier about the second gear stuff, so I think we covered that too. But Greg, now as we roll into or approach the season, what's the timeline looking like on the new build? Because I've been following along on YouTube as things have been coming together, but what does the first outing look like? And do you have a date in mind? when we're going to see this twin turbo beast back out there?
So we are hoping to be on a dyno. I'm not sure which one we're going to be on. Say middle to late April, and then be testing, early to mid May. So that way we can kind of be out late May and into June to start making passes. I filmed all day, or not all day, but all Friday night, all day Saturday, and then this morning. And I had my Greg's Getting Stuff Done weekend, where I had a list of like 16 items of projects that I needed to get done that were like either really small stuff I've put off, or I've started them and just stopped because I've got ADHD, and I was like, hey, look, a butterfly, let's do this. So like I had all that stuff there. So I worked probably 28 hours since Friday night. I got home this morning at 1:30 in the morning. I was back at the shop at 8:15. So yeah, been putting in hours there. So yeah, we made a bunch of progress this weekend. Fuel cell was mounted this weekend. Got the intake manifold, the upper intake finished, and everything's on there. So the next video coming out, everybody that's been following along, where I've been saying it's the secret manifold on there, where you're gonna see it in the next video.
I've seen it. I've already seen it. I've already seen it.
Oh, you did see it. Yeah, I sent him the pictures. It's like last night or this morning or whatever.
One last to bring the emotional side of things into it.
Okay.
Are you ready to fire up that car and make a pass?
So yeah, I'd made a post the other day. Yes, it was yesterday, I think. I was sitting in the car. I was mounting the seat back in, and I got in the car. I was sitting in there, and I had the steering wheel on and everything, and I didn't have my belts or anything like that. And like once I sat in there, like it was the first time since June of last year when we had the wreck at Brainerd No Prep Kings that like I had a flashback to the entire wreck. Like I was sitting there and like I was playing with the buttons on the steering wheel, and I was like, okay, like acting like I was staging. When I let off the button, it was just this like flashback to like it let off, it went out, 100 foot, and then turned and went into the wall, and then bounced off, came into the center of the track, and then I lit on fire. And I was just sitting there, and I was just like, oh God, and like I was just like, I got goosebumps now thinking about it. But like I was sitting there, I'm like, man, like, and just in this daze. And like my dad was there, and he's like, everything good? And I was like, no. And he's like, what's up? And I just told him like, I'm pretty honest with all my stuff there. And I was like, man, I was like, this is the only time I've ever had a flashback to that accident there. And he's like, yeah. I said, get the door, because I didn't have the door on. I said, put the door on here. And he's like, I was like, yeah, like I want to feel what it's like in here. I'm like, because at the time, like in that moment, I was like, if I don't feel good in here, like I got to figure something out, like I put all this time and money and energy into doing this, and I've got, sponsors on board and marketing partners and stuff. So I'm like, man. So he put the door on, and I was sitting there, and I don't even have the dash in it yet, the digital dash. And I was just sitting there. I was like, okay. And I was like looking around, and then I'd like just went through the entire sequence of like burnout box, going through, firing everything up. And I did that like 2 or 3 times. And like dad was just sitting there kind of like watching, like, man, this is like, I've never really seen him have that there. And I was just like, okay. And then after I went through that a couple of times, and it was just, I never got back in a car after that accident and made a pass, where in 2019, it was like 3 weeks later, I took my GTO and I went down the same lane at the same track, just a slower deal, and just got that out of me.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a little tough yesterday, but after I did that a few times, I was like, okay, I'm feeling good here, because I got through those motions again. Yeah, I'll probably take because the track opens up earlier, I'll probably maybe take my GTO down once or twice and just kind of get those little jitters out before I jump back in the car, just to make sure. But yeah, I got back in it today and I didn't have any issue in there or anything like that. But yeah, it was definitely one of those, like, whenever you have one of those wrecks, it's like when they say, if you fall off the horse, get back on. Like the best thing is don't be afraid of it.
Yep.
And after that had happened, I think it was a couple of weeks later, I was out on the road doing Mount Motor Pro Stock stuff, and I wasn't in the car at all, so we were doing everything else, and I was helping other people all year. And yeah, I never got back in. So like, yeah, it did take a little bit, but yeah, just those motions was huge to kind of push through that. And like I said, today got in, no big deal.
I think once you make a pass, it'll all just feel normal again to you, and then you'll be good.
When I make a pull on the dyno, last year on the blow through carb at 30 pounds, I made 2,750. And then when we set the world record, we were at like 40 pounds. So we were, over the 3,000 range in that. This year we have twin 88s that are going to be on it. And like I said, in that 50-55 pounds boost range on the dyno, should be around 4,000. Should. So we'll hope. We'll see.
That's gonna sit you back in the seat there a little bit, huh?
Yeah, three Gs. I think I told Brian a long time ago about 3 Gs. Like pulling 3 Gs has always been my goal. I hit it last year. I went 3.2 Gs and we held over 3 Gs for 1.4 seconds or something. And the whole reason I wanted to pull 3 Gs is the space shuttle pulls 3 Gs going into outer space, and I can build a car way faster than I can become an astronaut.
So instead of going straight, why don't you just name the car up?
Tried that in Georgia, right there.
Damn gravity.
Yeah,
friggin' gravity.
I don't know if we ever talked about this, but I was actually in the staging lanes getting ready to race at No Prep Kings when you had your crash.
I didn't know that.
I was panicking at the time because my trans brake button wasn't working, and
I was panicking for different reasons.
you got me the time I needed.
Oh, you were gonna say that.
So I had time to zip to the trailer, grab some wiring and some electrical tape and stuff, and fix the car before we got up there. So
Your trauma and expenses and injuries were worth the 99-cent electrical tape and a few minutes of time.
no,
Greg, so
but
I'm glad that
it's butterfly
glad-
effect. Butterfly effect. You got to think of the good side of it.
I'm glad that my 6-figure accident was able to
Yeah,
help out
exactly,
your
right?
14-cent fix.
Like I still had the bracket button in there. I could have launched with or whatever, but
yes, you didn't have to crash, but
well, you didn't have to. But I'm just saying, like,
you know what he's trying to say
I'm
without
just saying.
saying that.
I'm just saying, you know, it gave me a little bit extra time.
If they would have like stopped me, because like what happened is at the end of the burnout, the fuel cap fell off. It either didn't get screwed on all the way or was set on. My guys say that they screwed it on, but they're like, I don't know if I screwed it all the way on. So like it might have had like a thread and the vibration made it fall off or whatever.
Because didn't somebody in the other lane pick it up, but didn't get it, or something happened that way?
Yeah, I haven't talked too much on that publicly because I'm not.
I can cut this.
Oh no, it's fine on there. It's just I won't say it on my own stuff on there because I don't want people to know, oh, he's just complaining about this and that, because that's what the internet does. But I'm not a finger pointer because like I can sit there and talk to my guys and they're like, how come it didn't get put on there? But then at the end of the burnout, it had fallen off and it rolled into the other lane. And the people that were in the other lane, their backup guy went out, he saw it, picked it up and went back to the starting line and didn't say anything to anyone. He held it in his hand. And then I launched. The fuel sloshed out and went under the left tire and turned me into the wall. And then I lit on fire and all that. And as I was on the ground, like I had rolled out, out of the car and everything like that, the dude walked over to my dad and said, hey, do you think this could be it? And handed my dad the fuel cap. And my dad, it took everything in his power to not just beat the living crap out of that guy. Like his son, I'm only child, so his only kid just was on fire in a wreck, laying on the ground with EMTs around him, and you want to come over and be like, we think this is it? Like that backup guy and the crew there, they also before I was even out of the ambulance, they had a video posted up on their social media going, oh, we got a first round win, and yeah, there was a bad wreck, hope he's okay. You guys had to, like, really? And you guys are the ones that didn't have a cap like in your hand there. You could have stopped it. It would, like, if they would have said to boost it on the starting line, like, hey, we found this, we need to check cars. Okay, dad would have been able to look at it, be like, oh, shut the car off.
Yeah, your dad would have saw it right away. He would have knew it was
and where the fuel cell was, turn the tires to the right, and he could go up in the wheel well and go, done. And it wouldn't have happened. But hey, if that's how they want to try to get a win, cool. We
had the same thing happen at Duluth Street Drags with my dry sump tank lid. I did my burnout and it rolled out, and then start line guy was there because they have guys that like back you up or whatever. And then same thing, like Uncle Don was like, oh yeah, that's for, he just ran over, he's like, crank the wheel, and he reached up, put it on, and then we raced. Like it's not like it was a big deal at the same time. But
No Prep Kings, you get a 2-minute clock. They can put you on a 2-minute clock, and my guys could take the front end off, put the fuel cap on, check all the spark plug wires, give me a thumbs up, and put it on. I'd still have a minute left. Like the card isn't. It's just a crappy situation.
Glad you're all right, Greg.
Oh,
you made it out. You guys are gonna rebuild better. Probably put the gap on them too if you ever grab a lane again. But
yeah, hopefully you get to race that guy again.
Oh, you don't worry. After we get some testing in, and if we end up at the same track, there's gonna be a call out on that guy. So
Nice.
We'll be eager to see it, man.
So Greg, you want to plug anything? Tag your sponsors. Tell your sponsors to sponsor me. Any of those kind of things.
I think I've already helped you out in that department before.
Oh, yeah.
So so I'm a person, I hate saying sponsor, I say marketing partners because we do a lot of marketing and work with our our sponsors and our partners on there. But AFCO Shocks has been on with us since like 2013. The guys there are awesome. Eric and Rex.
Eric's my boy. I love Eric.
Nick's Works Tree Service. He was actually a groomsman at my wedding. Really cool dude. He actually married, as I call my sister. I've known her forever, and she's a really cool gal. Her name's Nicole. He always he's like, "What do you need for the car?" And like I was like, I'm like, I need something like this much, and he's like, "All right, I'm gonna get it for you." And that's that's our deal for this year. So Nick's Works, he's actually taking. He did a 2-year deal with us, and he is remodeling the entire interior of my trailer right now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Go Lithium. We do a lot of work with them. We sell a lot of their batteries. They're one of the lightest batteries out there, and they're super safe. Vigilant Guardians. They're a motorcycle club here in town, and they're actually an all veteran motorcycle club. And my dad is a 100% disabled vet, so they thought it was really cool with that, and so I wanted to kind of jump on board. Stroud Safety came on board for 2023, so we'll have a new Stroud suit and a bunch of stuff on board for the car for them. And I have one more that's being announced in the next week or so. So I can't really say that yet, but we have a turbo sponsorship coming on board. A lot of people probably figure who it is, but I'm not saying everything out there.
Is it eBay? It's probably eBay, right?
eBay turbo.
Yeah, so I want to thank eBay Motors for 1320 marketing. They do our canopy and my shirt that I'm wearing and all this stuff like that. So they do some really cool stuff like that. Bishop's Performance Transmissions. They take care of all of my transmission work and everything for the car. They do some really killer stuff in there, and I'm probably forgetting people that they're gonna be like, you didn't thank me on there. So Dad, anybody else that helps us on there, if I forgot you, I apologize, and send me a text.
Didn't mention them. It's like, hey, we're not doing this anymore. Well, I'll sponsor you a 12-pack as long as I can find it. So, I want my name on the shirt.
I'm just gonna show up with a white shirt that says Trev.
I love it. Yeah.
So, but no, yeah, it's fun to come on here and chat with you guys. And if you guys ever want me to come back on and talk about engine stuff or whatever else, I'm always down because I like talking.
I agree. Like-minded. So next time Greg, we will both be having a beer.
Oh yeah, a couple casuals. We appreciate it, Greg, and all the insights as usual. Always really interesting and good chat. So
yeah, hey, thanks for having me on. And it's always great to talk with Canadians because you guys are the nicest people to talk about or to talk with on here. So
just us three. The rest of the Canadian population,
no.
Nah.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey, thank you guys. Thanks, Canada.
Thanks, Greg.
Take care, man.
Awesome.
That's a wrap, Greg. We're now no longer live, but
should I do that for the intro? Welcome to our show.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, so tell us about your run.
So I don't actually know this guy that you guys are making me talk to right now.
You can't be like that. Just say you're gonna go and help him out.
Just say you're gonna help him. Ask him how his past was. Ask him how his past. I don't actually care what his past was because we've never met before this.
Hey, farm truck and Asian are coming over.
Yeah, you guys are both from Canada, so just pretend for the TV that you guys live next door to each other. This guy lives 10 hours away from me. I've never met him before, and he came into my pit and told me that my 4-link wasn't going to work, and then I put him on the trailer Friday night. Fuck you, buddy.